morning, cellists. Week 11 of the lockdown, and this is our second lesson of this week, and we're looking at the Brahms middle movement, the Allegretto quasi Menuetto from his E minor sonata. We're also looking at Feuillard's study number 34, and in all of this we're considering bow articulation, length of note, and really having an ear for detail and control, whatever solution you choose, to make sure that it's orally correct and maybe indistinguishable from one bow type of solution to the other. And in terms of our technical preparations today, I think that usefully we could look at an arpeggio. We're just coming to a point in the Brahms Menuetto where we're moving into a C minor tonality. So I thought that's as good as anything in terms of looking at an arpeggio. We're just going to look at 2 octaves, but I want you to think about things in a different way. You know, we always begin on the key note and we go up and back down. Well, that's a kind of like fairly predicted way of looking at an arpeggio. But let us do as pianists often do with their broken chords. We'll have to look at different inversions. Inversion is talking about what your bottom note is. Now in a standard arpeggio, C is at the bottom. Take the same notes, begin on the next note up, the E flat, and we'll rise to an E flat, like this. That's called the first inversion, whereas the standard arpeggio that you know with the key note at the bottom is called root inversion, well, root position. There's also, in this situation of these 3 notes, we started on C, we started on the E flat, we can also start on the G, and no surprises there, it's known as second inversion. So it's a different way of looking at your arpeggios, because obviously that when we are finding arpeggio phrases and fragments in pieces of music, they could be any portion within the whole parameter of the instrument. And it's important that we feel even more flexible and fluent when we come across those arpeggio fragments. We can use any of these 3 that I've given you with the root, first or second inversion, and apply a bow pattern to make it a little bit more interesting, give you a challenge. And in this case, really looking at how that might help you with Brahms. Our most simple, let's just take maybe the first inversion for a change of scene, would be slow at 3, then 3 up bow staccatos, then staying back down. So that's one of our ideas, or if you did it in root, something like that. So that's one idea. Another one may be that if we were looking at the idea of the lift, where there I slurred the first 2 with a lift on the second note, then all the others could be on an up bow, or you could interchange. You can be in control of those variations, but I just really want to sort of seed the idea that variety is everything, because you'll come across so many different instances, either clearly marked by your composer or not, and you need to make some decisions and listen to those decisions and decide if they're actually convincing and suitable. There we are, there's our technicals. Now moving on, we're looking at Feuillard study number 34, and as I said in yesterday's first initial lesson, unlike the previous, the 9 weeks of Feuillard studies we did prior to the technicals week, we're not taking it in fragments. We're looking at the complete study, but looking at variations of this. So yesterday I was encouraging you to learn initially as a double stop, that sort of thing. And today we're now going to look at breaking it down, but still not what is written. So what is written is just, but we're not going to do that yet, because I'm really interested in encouraging you to develop variations on practice, so that you are isolating different elements that are required. Now initially what I would suggest is you do a dotted rhythm with this. at the top is that you're then preparing for speed of the top two notes, so that particularly when we come to the shift, there I'm only doing one set for each chord, but we'll have to be swift. Now of course when you've done your double stop practice, your double stop practice itself will by nature of course mean that you're moving the whole hand shape quickly, but can you, when you separate it into a linear fashion, still remain fast about your shift speed? That sort of thing, and there's no shift there, it's just a question of moving my fingers across the string. So that's the first idea, that taking dotted rhythms helps with a fast movement but not all the time, so every other pair you're looking at a fast speed. So that's one idea. The other, to help with the idea of pinch and release in the kind of bow action here, would be if you just take the first two notes going from the A string to the D string, so fairly flat bow here, we're pinching and release on the lower string. Now if this is quite new to you, I would suggest you just take the upper notes. So we're looking at C, D, B. Those notes you could do right, as you can see, I'm doing a down up flick. It's a pinch with the first finger of the right hand and rebound, which might be encouraged by the little finger. But definitely it's a reaction. The up bow is a reaction. So that's your first, if this is new to you, this is the first thing I would do. Stick with one string. And then when you're comfortable with that, you can do the lower note across the strings. A slightly flatter bow here for this. So you get the idea, and it's much easier to do the A string to the D string because we are rotating naturally on a clockwise motion, which is really, really easy for our arms to do a clockwise rotation. Think of doing mixing for your kick mixes or something like that. Whereas when we do counterclockwise, it's going against our physical makeup there, and it is harder and more tiring if you did an awful lot of that. We are going to be looking at the counterclockwise action when we then take the second pair of each set of four. So this time, same notes, but going from the lower. Sorry, not quite clean enough yet. So flat bow here. It's going to be cleaner when it's a reaction to the one that goes down. And of course we're looking here at a counterclockwise action in the arm. So those are things that you can do throughout the study. It will be a case of endurance and stamina for you. If you tire, you can break it down into sort of phrase shapes, or I think it quite clearly sort of shows you places where you could potentially stop. If you're looking how to improve your stamina, do not forget to breathe, especially through the nose. That will really help you to re-energise, get oxygen into those muscles and be able to see it all the way through to the end without sort of dragging in any way. Of course, once you've done all those exercises, you could start to put it together. Etc. And of course, when it comes to this phrase we're just looking at here, the beautiful sequential descent, we're looking at a very fast action, moving actually quite a long distance there. For example, at the end of bar 7, my first finger's on the D, my third finger will be moving to that point, so I'm going back a displaced tone. But don't forget, you'll have done your double stopping work with this, etc. So you'll be prepared. You know, there's an awful lot in that, but really give it a go. This is how we would break down getting a good spiccato, possibly sautille, stroke, and it can be varied in length, but let's not go there just yet. that gives you some idea. So we've looked at the dotted rhythm, dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, and we've looked at separating da-dum, da-dum, and da-dum, da-dum, and then put them together. And you could even have a little gap between if you need it. Something like that, so you're really mindful of the pinch and release. And that's what I really want to kind of like drive home as the point in that. Right, moving on to the next section of the Brahms Allegretto. We're starting from the upbeat into bar 30. Now at bar 30 we have the same rhythmic shape, phrase cell if you like, as the opening, but actually Brahms didn't put any markings as he did in the beginning. He doesn't put the little slur over into the first quaver. That's not to say that it isn't his intention that we might do something like that. So it's really up to you to decide what you want. You could, I mean the piano part, again the material there is be-da-dum-bum, be-da-dum-bum. It's the same kind of little cellular shape as we had at the opening. What is happening here, it's like a little development section, and we've got harmonic changes and sort of lovely falling sequences. You know, it's very, very pretty. So it could therefore have a slightly different solution to it. Now if we took the opening solution, so in that case I was slurring with a lift, 2 ups, and again slur with a lift, and that would work. That's quite pleasing. I think at the next point where we get rising arpeggios, you won't be surprised to hear that they are C minor arpeggios. So in which case there was our first inversion C minor arpeggio. It all ties in. They are something else. You know, the development here is very, very light, very beautiful, and it's rising right up, you know, right up and back, right up, and then lowest. Beautiful low note, and I'll just glance back and yep, it's the lowest note so far. We've had E natural, but E flat. Gosh, it's beautiful to have arrived in such a rich location. So in terms of what our solutions could be, when we look at that lovely C minor arpeggio, that this is all slurred for the first 3 notes, and that ties in very much with the ya-da-dum-pum in the piano. Now the piano's had a lot of these ya-da-dum-pum, pee-da-dum-pum all the way through, but this time it's a lovely kind of contrary motion sort of aspect where they're falling and we're absolutely permanently rising, whereas previously we've kept around sort of step motions and fallen. So there is something different in the material, and very often that material is what tells you that maybe you need a different solution. And the one I'm just showing you there, where we all slurred, and then 3 short ones all on the up bow, which is rather like the one of the arpeggio solutions I was giving you at the very opening of the class today, where we had 3 smooth and 3 up, you know, for a good reason, because this I think could be beautifully employed here. Now if you took that same idea as we've got at 36 and apply it to 30, well, let's see what happens. You could therefore have a single bow from the dotted crotchet, so in that case I've just got 3 little tiny ups there rather than slurring to an up, but it's just slightly lighter, and it's almost like a little fairy figure or something. You know, there's something different. It's a development. So I quite like that as an idea, and I think it absolutely can stand up. So you need to try it out and see if you like that. And so personally I would quite like that as a solution from bar 30, and then it fits. You'll also do the same at 34. I'm making sure that here we're really smooth, including the C here. It's only a moment in time, it's not as long as obviously I was just demonstrating there, but attention to detail is everything. And if you just glance across to the other side of the page of your manuscript, in the trio, it's wonderful that he takes that same idea, drops it further back into C sharp major, and it's all slurred. I mean, fantastic. And if you like, you might see this bar 36 as the seed to that change of character completely, with something so similar and yet so far removed when we come to its placement in the trio. There's food for thought. So we've considered articulation, the potential for a different bow solution, and the reasons why that might be perfectly acceptable, but you don't have to. It's your decision as the interpreter. We now come to the lovely little grazioso. So falling on a chromatic from the point of the bow. I quite like this on an up bow so that we lean into the ornamentation being the leaning point, of course, you know. And I think it lends itself to the architecture there to begin on and up. Many editions printed down, you could try that, but I just feel it kind of could come in with a beautiful sort of edge to it, and then gradually grow as we come to the ornamentation. So we've got chromatic lines coming in here, we've got the sort of C minor harmony, very well established at this point. And we've arrived here. So again, from the very point here. Now this would be a case in point for finger crossing, so you have smoothness across the string. And similarly at bar 41 was another nice place to kind of like cross the fingers over for smoothness. Now, I mean, there are many solutions to this. You could try a swift shift back. I don't think mine was very clean. You could do that to keep the A string sound, which is, you know, something really beautiful about keeping that and the length of the string as you come back. Any of these solutions are perfectly valid, so explore and experiment with them. Within this, the theme is exchange between you and the piano. It's a sort of a two-bar conversation there, and that at this point, from the grazioso, the left hand of the piano is lovely legato quavers of broken chords, and this is all the way through until the recap, which is bar 59, 60, something like that. Now the reason I'm drawing your attention to that is because what happens next in the cello part, you must know what's going on in the piano for this to be successful. So we've come to point I think that area, not too bad, it's just a very low register of the little thematic cell that the piano opened with. But the problem is, from the octaves at bar 50, so often one hears really, that's paid no attention to what would be musical, whether or not you understood what's in the score, and certainly not if you know what's in the score. Okay, so what is in the score? Yes, I see you all rushing to your scores now to go and have a little look. Well, this score, as I indicated a bit earlier, the left hand of the piano is still got all these really lovely legato sort of notes. Music is in the way, so I can't quite see. But you get the idea. You know, lovely, lush and legato waves of sound. So it would be very inappropriate for us to be going where there's a short, lifted and over sort of sticking out crotchet. And we absolutely do not want that, okay? Now, the way to train your physical reaction and get your ear to really listen in would be, you can take the upper register of that octave and play all at that pitch like this. That then you're more likely to engage your own natural musical instinct, which is the lean is on the minim. And we're looking for smoothness. You might see a little bit of the flexibility in my joints of my right hand there. Let's have another look. trying to be as joined up as possible, remembering that we've got all these, you know, beautiful flowing quavers in the piano part there, and so you want to try and hug those crotchets, make them long, be really reluctant to let go of them. At the same time, we don't want them to stick out. So by practicing it, as I've suggested, at the same register, typically the higher one, where you can really, really focus your ear to exactly what your articulation is, that you can really know what it feels like for that crotchet. Now it'll be the same, but I'll begin from the lower. And of course, some of the problem is crossing over the string. Don't make it a problem. You know, keep your elbows slightly on the high side so you can easily pivot from one to the other, and absolutely make the oral architecture your total priority. It looks like an easy passage and very easily played badly. Don't be unmusical, you know, make this work. And we've also, it's piano, so although it's easy, it's very easy to have, because you've had the tune, you might think you could be robust here, but don't. You know, we've had the tune, and back off, and then a poco a poco crescendo. So we've had, and the piano is, you know, they're continuing on with this lovely E7 chord. There's some really beautiful harmonies going on in here, kind of like alluding to E7 and then going in and out of using G minor, D minor, D major, you know, sort of varying it a little bit, and hence you're getting sometimes F naturals, sometimes F sharps. Absolutely beautiful writing. Really, that's pretty much like brought us to the conclusion of today's lesson. So we're really thinking about always being orally very aware. This is the same with yesterday's lesson and today, that when you're playing an accompanying role, like those octaves that we've just been looking at, it's especially important that it's musical, well phrased, thought about, where is the weight, and obviously we understand that the difficulty we've got a crotchet to get back to the heel, so you need to be of a quicker stroke, but it'll have to be lighter. And we've got the problem of the register, crossing over a string to the lower notes. But you can see, if you really endeavour, you can make it work. And I think the other little point to that could be that if you make the crotchet have a really fast vibrato on it, you know, this, imagine it was going up, you know, that you can, if you imagine it at a register that you're familiar with and see what your shapes are there, then you can put the displaced octave in and it'll work. And it's a tremendous thrill when you can actually really draw that line, which is what we're really talking about here, line drawing or our oral architecture. Great, so I hope you enjoy exploring some of these ideas and see what you come up with. See you soon.